You are not voting against human rights. The EU Convention on and European Court of Human Rights are not part of the EU. Until Parliament passes a new Bill of Rights for the UK, these will still apply, as will precedents already passed down to UK courts from Brussels. This is predominantly true, and kind of admits to something a bit more sinister without really pointing out that it's a bit more sinister. Although I will say that I kind of, as much as I hate this "you are not voting for" thing that everything's prefaced with, I couldn't help but think, you're not voting against human rights. Am I not? Bugger! That's what I was really hoping to do when I put my cross in the box. Just the way I kind of read that. Right. EU Convention on European Court of Human Rights are not part of the EU. True. We can be and are members of that without being in the EU. However, we cannot be in the EU without being members of the European Court of Human Rights. So leaving the EU could be seen as a stepping stone to leaving the European Court of Human Rights. And let's remember the rights that both the EU and the European Court do provide us. They set a base level of rights for all people, accountable to hundreds of millions of people, which means that this system has to work because it's under a lot of scrutiny from many different places. We have rights drawn out for the disabled. We have rights drawn out for workers. We have civil protections as a result of both the EU and the European Court of Human Rights. Where this gets scary is when it says until Parliament passes a new Bill of Rights for the UK. There's absolutely no reason for us to. We could have a bill of supplementary or additional rights. People will often say, well, we've got better maternity pay rights than the European Court specify or the EU specify. Yes, at the moment, but that also shows that Europe isn't holding us back from having better rights. We don't need to replace, we can enhance, we can additionally add better rights, as we do in some areas already. So why in some areas does the government seem keen to bring us out of the European Court of Human Rights? It's not getting in the way of us having better rights. So ask yourself why, when we are told, oh yes, well these rights, they get in the way of us having bigger ones. No, they don't. We want out of the Court of Rights. We can draw a better one for ourselves. We don't need to leave to have this extra layer if we wanted an extra layer, if we wanted better rights. So that does give me pause for thought. There's a thing that goes a bit more conservative-centric later on in this, so I'll only touch briefly on Theresa May and the Snoopers Charter. Theresa May does not seem to like the European Court of Human Rights, and the European Court of Human Rights do not seem to like some of the things she's wanting to do. She is behind Remain, but she has very recently said she would like to leave the European Court. She can't leave the European Court whilst being in the EU. I've already addressed that one. The Snoopers Charter is relevant in that if you're watching this, or listening to this, because it's more of a podcast than a video, you are using an internet connection. According to the Snoopers Charter, the idea is to log everything you do online. Whether through your phone, through Wi-Fi hotspots on tablets, laptops, whatever, at home, log everything you do. Which means the government will build a database of you, and then will do what it pleases with it. Keep it, go through it, ignore it, bin it, sell it. These are civil liberties, these are civil rights that are already under threat from our government. And these people in government and the previous government, the Blair regime, eroded our civil liberties to quite some extent when and where it could. These are the people that would be drawing up these British Bill of Rights. So these are the people, when you say, oh, it shouldn't be a partisan issue, it's to do with the EU, not the Tories or Labour or this or that, we have to put everything in context. Every point in isolation doesn't seem so bad, but everything's interconnected. So you have to think, who would be in control, or who would be negotiating this, or who would gain, in whose interest would this bit be as opposed to that, and are they the people that are going to be doing it? So to me, this is a very huge thing, because whatever you think of the EU, the EU mandates that we remain within the European Court. And to me, the protection of the European Court, its accountability, because of the scrutiny, because of the number of people it represents, the fact that the UK was integral in the formation of all these things, the fact it's the UK that chooses to forward cases to the UK courts when we're told bloody Europe wouldn't let us do this. Frequently, we've referred the thing over to them and agreed to abide by the decision. So it's been our choice to pass that over and then get told yay or nay. Much as a lot of these things are our choice to pass something over and say, hey, you know, we don't want to deal with this. Can you handle this? We'll agree with it. And in the case of the European courts, because we are so integral to the European courts, I really don't see it as being a significant issue that we would need to leave. But this is saying we wouldn't be leaving until, and I'm saying the EU means that we would maintain the protection of the European courts that we may otherwise lose if we left. I know I've repeated myself, it's because it's something I believe passionately in, and I just cannot emphasise enough how important it is that, to me, we remain in the European Court of Human Rights.